The boy who was once mocked for being poor and told he could never achieve anything in life, 4 years later, the same girl showed up at his office asking for a job. What happened next shocked everyone. Lucas Grant adjusted his wrinkled collar and glanced at the glass door of the tech startup office. His resume was tucked carefully inside a thin plastic folder, just one page, printed at the local library. He took a deep breath, trying to still the tremor in his fingers. This was his 5th interview that month, and the receptionist's polished desk, gleaming floors, and high-tech buzz made his worn sneakers feel like an insult to the space. Inside the conference room, a few team members were already waiting. Lucas was surprised to see someone his own age, a girl in a crisp beige blazer, legs crossed, tapping her iPad with a manicured finger. Her blonde hair was tied in a perfect ponytail, her heels too high for comfort. She glanced up briefly when he walked in and then smirked. "Interview for the data intern, right?" she asked, not looking up again. Lucas nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She scoffed slightly at the ma'am. "We're not in the military, cowboy. Chill." Lucas sat at the edge of the chair, placing his folder on the table carefully. Another man walked in, mid-30s, holding a coffee cup, and nodded to the girl. "Madison, you're leading this one. I've got a call." Madison? So she was in charge? Lucas blinked, surprised. She turned to him, eyes scanning his plain shirt. "All right, Lucas Grant. Let's see what you've got." She opened the folder. Her face changed in an instant. Not shock, not concern, just a look of mild amusement. "This is your resume?" she said, holding it up for the others to see. Lucas nodded slowly. "Yes." "You listed Excel basics as a skill," she said, raising an eyebrow. "And under experience, it says, helped dad with customer invoices at hardware store. I also built a," Lucas started, "prototype app in your garage, I see." She read aloud from the bottom of the page. "And your references are your community college professor and your neighbor?" The others in the room said nothing, but Lucas could feel the invisible smiles forming. Madison leaned back, folding her arms. "Lucas, this company handles national-level cloud architecture. We use AI, full-stack platforms, enterprise-grade solutions. And you brought this?" Lucas's throat went dry. I know I'm not from a big school, but I've been working really hard. I taught myself Python. I built a live inventory system for a small store chain." She cut him off again. "We're not hiring store clerks, Lucas." Silence. Lucas stared at his hands. "I understand. Thank you for your time." Madison didn't say another word. Lucas stood, picked up his folder, and walked out. As he exited, he heard a soft chuckle behind him. That chuckle stayed in his ears all the way home. That night, Lucas was very sad, but he opened his laptop, closed every tab that said, "Find jobs near me," and opened a blank window instead. He typed, "Start your own." That day, Lucas made a silent promise. He would never walk into a room again where someone else had the power to humiliate him. The next 2 years were brutal. He coded every day, but he kept building. One app failed, then another. Then, on the 3rd try, something clicked. It was called Neural Fleet, a smart inventory prediction tool for small businesses. Simple UI, real-time analytics, cheap subscription. Within a year, it was in over 200 retail stores, then 700. Then a nationwide grocery chain picked it up. Investors came knocking. Lucas didn't say yes to any of them. By the time he turned 28, Lucas Grant was quietly sitting atop a multi-million-dollar startup. He still lived humbly. Then one day, an old name came up. Pinnacle X, the same startup where he was once mocked, the same place that told him his garage-built app wasn't worth discussing, was shutting down. Turns out their CEO mismanaged funds. Their investors pulled out. The company was on the verge of collapse, and someone was offering to buy it. That someone was Lucas. He didn't even step inside the building during acquisition. His lawyers handled everything. 2 weeks later, he was the new owner. Lucas didn't change much. He didn't fire anyone, didn't boast. He just waited, because he knew. Within a month, job applications started flooding in, and one resume stopped him cold. Name, Madison Clark. Previous position, HR lead at Cerebridge. Applied role, People Operations Specialist. Status, shortlisted for interview. Lucas stared at the screen. He remembered the smirk, the garage comment, the chuckle. He clicked, approved for interview. The interview was set for Thursday. Madison would walk in at 10 a.m. Lucas arrived early that day. Not in a suit, just his usual dark jeans and navy pullover. He sat in the corner office and watched the elevator doors. And then, she walked in. Same confident walk, same ponytail. But this time her expression wasn't arrogant. It was anxious. She held her bag close, her makeup too perfectly done, her steps a bit uncertain. The receptionist led her to the meeting room. Lucas waited a moment. Then, he walked in. Madison turned as the door opened, standing up to greet the interviewer. "Good morning, She stopped. Her eyes widened. Lucas smiled politely. "Have a seat." She stared, confused. I think I'm in the wrong room." He gently slid her resume across the table. "Madison Clark," he read aloud. "Previous role in HR, applied for People Ops, Education, UC Berkeley. References, outdated." Her face went pale. Lucas looked up. "Nice resume, Madison," he said, his voice calm. "Did you type this in a garage?" Madison's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The words she had once tossed so carelessly at a shy applicant now came back like a slap across the face. She stared at Lucas, trying to process what was happening. I don't understand," she said, her voice suddenly dry. "You're the—" Lucas nodded slowly. "I'm the new owner of Pinnacle X. My company acquired it last month." Madison blinked rapidly, her jaw trembling. She glanced around the interview room as if someone would jump out and yell, "Gotcha! But you were... 4 years ago, you were just a kid with a paper resume and a nervous smile." "I still have a paper resume," Lucas said softly. "But I'm not nervous anymore." Madison looked down, embarrassed. "Lucas, I didn't know. I was just doing my job." Lucas tilted his head. "Were you?" There was no anger in his tone, no raised voice, but the weight behind the question was heavier than any insult. Madison swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to be cruel. I was younger then." "So was I," Lucas replied. Silence filled the room. Not tense, not awkward, just honest. Madison slowly sat down again. "If I had known, you would have treated me better?" Lucas asked. She hesitated. "Maybe. I don't know. Probably." He leaned forward, hands folded. "That's the problem, Madison. You shouldn't have needed to know who I might become. You had a chance to treat me with respect when I was nobody. And you didn't." Her eyes turned glassy. "I was under pressure. My manager was watching. I was trying to be confident, to impress." "You were trying to sound superior," he said gently, "and you succeeded." Madison didn't argue. Lucas slid her resume back toward her. "You're qualified. You've got experience. But this company, now mine, doesn't hire based on credentials alone. We hire based on how you treat people." She took the resume silently and nodded, not lifting her eyes. Lucas stood up, about to walk out, but paused at the door. "By the way," he said without looking back, "your resume's better than mine ever was." Then he left the room. Outside, Lucas walked past desks, screens, nervous applicants. He didn't feel triumphant. No dramatic music played in his head. No revenge was served on a platter. What he felt instead was clarity. He wasn't that kid anymore. He had no reason to carry the weight of someone else's mockery. But still, something about Madison's presence lingered with him for the next few days. He hadn't made a final decision about her job. He could have rejected her instantly. But he didn't. Because somewhere deep inside, he didn't want revenge. He wanted change. Meanwhile, Madison sat on the edge of her bed staring at her laptop. The office looked so different now. The old team was mostly gone. The new staff seemed grounded, quiet, focused, and Lucas. She remembered the shy boy, the one who had walked in with his cheap resume and hopeful eyes. She remembered laughing. She remembered thinking she was above him. And now, she wasn't even close. She emailed him that night. The subject line read, "Not for the job, just a message." Inside, she wrote, "Lucas, you didn't need to give me that interview. You didn't even need to speak to me, but you did. And you did it with grace I didn't deserve. You could have humiliated me. You didn't. I've spent the last 4 years growing in my career, but in those 10 minutes, I realized I didn't grow much as a person. Thank you, not just for not turning into me, but for becoming someone better." Lucas read it twice, then once more. He didn't reply, not right away. He let the silence speak, just like she had done years ago. But this time, his silence wasn't cold. It wasn't cruel. It was healing. 2 weeks passed. Madison didn't hear back. Then one morning, she received an envelope via courier. No email, no message. Just a clean white envelope with her name typed in block letters. Inside, a single page. Offer of employment. Position, Culture and Equity Advisor. Location, Pinnacle X, HQ, San Francisco. Salary, $0 for the first month, by your own request. Objective, help ensure no applicant ever feels the way you once made someone feel. Start date. If you're ready to be who you should have been back then. At the bottom was a signature, Lucas Grant, founder and CEO, Neural Fleet and Pinnacle X. She smiled, tears welling up as she clutched the letter. No applause, no redemption speech, just a quiet opportunity, the kind she once denied someone else. And that was enough. The morning air in San Francisco was brisk as Madison stepped out of the metro and walked toward the tall glass building that once felt like her kingdom. Pinnacle X, once a rising tech star, had crumbled and risen again under someone else's hands, the same hands she had once dismissed without a second thought. This time, she didn't walk in with heels and confidence. She wore flats, simple gray trousers, a navy blue blouse. No designer handbag, no show, only purpose. The receptionist smiled warmly, already expecting her. "Welcome back, Madison. You'll be working from the 4th floor. Lucas said you'll find your desk by the windows." Madison thanked her and stepped into the elevator, her heart pounding not with fear, but with a strange sense of peace. She had come full circle, but not as a leader, not as a climber, as a learner. On the 4th floor, everything felt different. The cubicles were now open spaces, more greenery, more silence. The energy wasn't cutthroat, it was calm, respectful, and there, at the far corner, was her new workspace. A small desk, a laptop, a corkboard, and a sticky note. "This is where new culture begins. LG." She smiled, gently touching the note. That day, she sat through 3 interview sessions, not as a judge, but as a listener. A girl with dyed red hair and a community college degree. A single father trying to return to the workforce. A shy, coding boot camp student who stumbled over every sentence. 4 years ago, she would have eliminated them in minutes. Now, she listened to every word. She didn't ask for perfect grammar. She asked, "Why do you want to be here?" By the end of the day, she had passed on 3 candidates to Lucas's team. Each one unlikely, each one eager. She didn't know if they'd be hired, but she knew this much. They wouldn't be laughed at, not on her watch. Lucas watched her from his office, arms folded. He hadn't told her everything. He hadn't told her that he'd seen the ripple effect of that moment. The day she had laughed at him. The way the receptionist had started treating other walk-ins. The way another intern started mocking a junior candidate's shoes. Toxicity wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was quiet and contagious. That's why he created the new position, Culture and Equity Advisor. He didn't need an HR person. He needed someone who had seen both sides of cruelty and grace, and Madison fit the role perfectly now. Weeks passed, then months. Pinnacle X began rebuilding its name, not just for its technology, but for how it treated people. Lucas and Madison rarely spoke outside of work, but their silences were no longer cold. They were built on understanding. One afternoon, as they walked out of the building after a long investor meeting, Madison glanced over. "I never asked," she said. "That day in the interview, why did you choose to speak to me at all?" Lucas looked at her for a moment, then said, "Because I didn't want to become what I hated." She nodded softly. "You didn't." Lucas shrugged. "You helped with that." They walked in silence for a few steps. Then Madison smiled faintly. "I like the new office," Lucas smirked. "You mean the plants?" "No," she said, her voice calm. "The air. It's lighter now." He nodded. "Respect does that." A year later, Pinnacle X won a national award for inclusive hiring culture. Lucas didn't attend the ceremony. He sent Madison instead. She stood on that stage in front of hundreds of CEOs, HR directors, and tech founders, and all she said was, "4 years ago, I judged someone by a piece of paper. Today, that same person gave me a chance to become someone better. So if you're ever in a position to decide someone's future, pause. And remember, the person you overlook today might own the company tomorrow." She didn't mention Lucas's name. She didn't have to. He was sitting in the back row, quietly clapping, proud. Not just of what he built, but of what they all rebuilt together. Some stories are loud, some are filled with drama. But this one? This was quiet. A soft war between ego and humility. Between judgment and grace. And grace won. Because one man decided not to become cruel after being humiliated. And one woman chose to rebuild after being humbled. In the end, it wasn't about resumes. It was about people and the dignity they deserve, no matter what paper they walk in with.